So our first guest today is Cynthia Tadeo, which just so happens to be my wife. So we're going to get right into the questions. I really want to get the audience and viewers to know more about you, your background. I'm a big person, obviously, on self-awareness, and I want to get into a little bit more of that and how and where you got your self-awareness from, and how you've been able to get to a success as a nurse practitioner. So the first part we're going to go into is really just kind of your background and where, what's your background from your siblings to your parents, and you can tell the viewers a little bit about that.
Okay, so I'm the oldest of 6 siblings. My mom and dad were married for, I'm 34, so 33 years. Both of my parents were born in Mexico, so first generation born here. What else? My background as in...
So as you were growing up, you had mom and dad at home.
Yes.
They did everything they can do as far as providing, and what were some of the extracurricular activities that they had you get into?
So they started me off in dance. I was in tap and ballet, and pretty quickly on, I guess my dad said, and the dance teachers, it was too slow. I had more energy than what that provided for me at the time. So they started me off in gymnastics, so I did that, and right away they moved me up fairly quickly. So I want to say maybe less than a year, and I was doing the competition stuff. I wasn't good at the beginning, but I think I was about 6 when I started competing, almost turning 7.
Okay.
So I did gymnastics for quite a while. In between that, I like to run. So I did a lot of track, cross country. Gymnastics, I would say, was the main sport I was in from about 6 to maybe 13, 14.
So you said that you weren't exactly as good at the beginning. So what were some of the things that you did to get better at those?
Well, that work ethic definitely started with my dad. I don't know if I would have, I don't know if I myself had that awareness that early on, but he's the one that instilled that hard work, would pay off. So I was just having to practice, go to the gym and then come home and practice and do it over and over until I got it right.
Mm-hmm. And did he do anything outside of like let's say again you had practice? So what were some of the things that he did to make sure that he contributed to your success in gymnastics?
Oh, ever since I can remember, he'd be the one. I mean, he worked graveyard and he wouldn't sleep, and he would just take me to practice. And at the time we lived in East LA, so it was a drive. The gymnastics was in La Habra, so that at least it would take an hour. He didn't like any of the ones, I guess, that he found, so that's where he would take me. So he was always there. My mom, obviously, too, I'm speaking as if she wasn't there, but I mean, I had that time, I think we only had just Jose and Isaac, so she was pretty much taking care of them at home while he would take me to and from practice a lot.
So you got to see firsthand somebody else do a sacrifice for you.
Oh, yeah.
From, again, like you said, him going from graveyard to taking you to practice, or taking you to practice before graveyard. So yes. Those were some of the things that you got to see from a very young age, as far as somebody else sacrificing for your betterment. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay. Now, let's go a little bit forward at that. How old were you when you stopped gymnastics?
Maybe 13. I want to say about 13.
13. And what?
14 going into high school.
At that point, did you feel like, because there's again, when somebody has done something for so long, and you obviously carry things over, like I said, the work ethic, sacrifice, some of those things that you get carried over to other things. So in that next kind of step in your life, did you feel or see any of that carry over at all?
Well, I think, a teenager, you're so self-absorbed. I don't think that I knew I was carrying that skill set over, but I definitely did now, looking back as a full-blown adult. I can see that, but at the time, I don't think I knew I was carrying it over.
And you're saying that because at the time when you started working, at what age?
14, right after.
So you started working at 14, and so that's what I really want to get dive into a little bit more was how that carried over at 14 years old, to get a job and start working. And it wasn't out of necessity. It wasn't like your
No.
parents needed you to work or anything like that, but it was
No.
pure out of hard work. And that next part of, I went from doing gymnastics for, 4 or 5 hours a day to now getting some kind of job that you're now, providing for yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit more. Not too much, because in high school you got to meet somebody. Who was that person?
Who?
Me. Oh. Wow.
I thought you were like saying like a celebrity or something.
Well, it's kind of the same. One of the same.
Yes, we met in high school, going into high school.
Well, I was already in high school. You came to my school looking for me.
I'm so sure.
So
I'm sure.
But no, so yeah, so we met at 15. We met at 14. We got together at 15, and throughout the process, obviously, it was getting to know each one of us. Got to know each other more than At that time, we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. It was really friends that got to know each other a lot better. But I knew, and I've always told you since I've known you, that you were different, and I always saw that in you. But for me, I think the best part about it was that we understood each other. We understood hard work. We understood sacrifice, dedication, those type of things. So when I would tell you, that I was going to marry you one day and do those type of things, you didn't exactly believe it, and obviously we're here now, 18 years later. But I guess my next question for you is: after high school, what happened? Well, what happened during high school? Should I say?
What didn't happen during high school? Okay.
Can we take the time to talk about how Jesse dressed in high school?
Crocs, slacks, silk shirts, the whole thing.
Well, I did get best dressed, so that was a reason. There's a reason for that.
You did. Okay.
And if you guys didn't realize, that's my brother-in-law Isaac. He's part of my podcast. It's this No Luck All Work podcast is our podcast that we've kind of created and hoped that the viewers really enjoy the content that we want to put up. So towards the end of high school, something
throughout
happened.
high school, we would break up at break time, get back together at lunchtime, break up again after school, all that fun stuff. But towards the end of high school, I got pregnant. That was towards the end of high school. I found out, I want to say prom, towards the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think graduating, I was like, I don't know, 2 months, a month or two.
Yeah, so that was 2004.
2005.
2005. Okay, so 2005, you find out you're pregnant. I want to dive into that a little bit. What at that point? What are you feeling? You find out you're pregnant. You find out you're pregnant, and at that point, obviously, I would believe that your dad's probably the first person that pops up in your head.
Yes.
So what are some of the feelings, or what are some of the thoughts that were going through your head at that time?
Oh my gosh, my heart is pounding just remembering those emotions. Well, I was terrified, nervous. I just felt like, oh my life is done. My dad is gonna disown me, and what am I gonna do? How I'm gonna raise my child? Should I go through with it? Should I not? Mm-hmm. Am I ready? Can I do this? Just all those, once I really started thinking, okay, once I tell my dad, then what is the next step? I still just wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, but where do you think those thoughts came from? Was it was it things that you felt he had instilled in you, or he had told you throughout your life that some of those emotions and thoughts would come into your head, or where did those come from, do you think?
Not really. He never said, if you get pregnant, this is what's going to happen. But my mom's a teen mom. I am the product of that. She was 16. So I saw the struggle. I saw them, go through a lot with having, and especially my mom being the mom, young mom, teen mom, I believe. She had 3 of us by the time she was 19. So I think throughout my childhood, I would just, always talk to myself and say, okay, I'm not going to repeat the cycle. I'm not going to repeat the cycle. As early as I can remember, I would tell myself, I'm not going to repeat this cycle. But there wasn't anything specific to, my dad telling me that he would disown me.
Yeah.
He never gave me a reason to think that, but nonetheless, I did. And when we did tell him, that wasn't his response.
Yeah. And I think it really boils down to you feeling, and you were a statistic, a teen parent. In no shape or form, did you feel like you were ready? We were ready to have a child as we were kids ourselves. But I think throughout that process, it's really important for people to understand that when you have the support system around you, and like you said, when obviously you told your dad, or I think I told your dad, one of the two.
I was sitting there. I was probably crying the entire time.
That it's really, really important that when you have the support around you, you can get through anything. I mean, whether you're prepared or not prepared. Okay, so you find out you were in high school. You find out you're pregnant towards the end of high school. Then in September 9th, 2005, what happens?
So I go into preterm birth. Obviously, when I got pregnant, everyone's saying, okay, your life is going to be a lot harder. You're making it harder for yourself. Kids get sick, and then you're going to have to wake up in the middle of the night to take care of your baby, and you're not going to get much sleep. And, that's what happens. I think at the time, you had just had your brother, Giovanni. So he was a baby when I was pregnant. So, your mom was raising a baby after all the babies she had raised. So I could kind of see what at least I thought my life was going to look like. But no, you think you have plans, or you think you're making plans, and then you get knocked on. Can you cuss on here? Knocked on your ass. So yeah, sure enough, September 9th, I went into preterm labor. I delivered. It went from the day before. I think we were thinking of names. We had just recently found out that we were having a girl. I was going to take the glucose test like the week after. I remember that orange drink sitting on my nightstand. So that's what my plans were. I was a waitress at the time, and I didn't plan beyond that day. But yeah, I delivered that day, and I just remember, I will never forget it happened so fast. From the time, I went into labor of actually having Deja, it was probably about 3 hours maybe. So it was just like your whole life changed within, our whole life changed within 3 hours. And once I delivered, I don't think I was processing much, but I can vividly remember, the doctor sitting down and saying, you had your daughter. If she lives, which is very unlikely, she has a 5% survival rate at the weeks that she's at and her birth weight. But if by miracle she does live, you have a very long road ahead of you. And that was nothing but truth.
Yeah. So you go from very quickly finding out you're pregnant to
me thinking I was just gonna get up and get some Tylenol.
At that point, accepting that you're gonna continue to go through and have, at the time we didn't know it was a daughter, but have the baby. To telling your dad, and overnight you have the baby, like from one day to the next, with no
No prepping, no,
No prepping,
idea,
no-
no clue. They still to this day have no idea why, why I went into preterm labor.
At that time, do you fully understand? Yes, that the doctors give you a 5% chance. The doctor, Deja was born at 23 weeks. Do you feel now, looking back, that you really understood the concept of what was going to happen
No,
next, or
no.
what the next 5, 10, 15,
No
20 years were
way.
going to be?
No, absolutely not.
And so, where do you think that how you got through that? Where did that come from? Because if it's something that I can't prep for,
Right.
how do you get through something that, one, you've never been through, two, you don't know anybody that is in your personal circle to go to as a resource to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on. How do I do this? You're 18. All of that.
Well, I think I've always had, since I was young, I've always been protective in nature. Excuse me. So, being the oldest of, my siblings, I think that has always been innate. I've always been protective. So now I have a child. So I have to figure it out. I don't, you don't have excuses. Your kid is not going to care about whatever excuses you have, whether you're sad, hurt, it just doesn't matter. I just needed to figure out how I was going to, but at the time, I'm still thinking, I'm 18 years old. You had just turned 18. I think you were 17, like a few days before that, and I'm thinking, well, what if he doesn't stay? So I'm going to have to figure this out. I'm going to have to be able to take care of my child. So it was out of necessity. I don't think I really had time to process another option.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
And it's obviously
a question for both of you. When you guys found out you were pregnant and you told Jesse, was there any talks about not going through with the pregnancy?
Oh, on my end, he was ecstatic. He was like, we were at the store and I think I took the test. I threw the box away, so I wasn't even sure what the lines meant. So I'm like, we got to go back to the store. I don't remember what this meant. I threw the box away. So we go back. I think it was Albertsons, and then when I saw that it meant pregnant, just started crying. Like I was like, oh my God, no. And he was so ecstatic. So I talked about it.
Yeah.
Once it settled, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to tell my family. I have a waitressing job. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with my future. I don't know if I'm gonna go through with this. And he begged me not to. Not to even consider it.
And what made you so excited?
For me, I had always thought about being a young dad. So to have that opportunity to be a father, to have the opportunity to have a baby with someone I loved, or I love, that was just kind of where the excitement came from. It was just a combination of the two, of me always wanting, my kid young, and then obviously, I don't know if 18 or 17 at the time was the young that I always thought about, but it was definitely thoughts, to make sure that I wasn't older when I had my first kid. So yeah. So you find out there's so many emotions and thoughts, and at the time probably confusion of what's next. How do I do this? How do I do that? Your daughter is in intensive care, so it's not like it's every day. Every day that passed was a success.
Right.
Because at that time, any day, she could have died. So going through that process as an 18-year-old, like I said, it's one thing to have a kid young, but it's another thing to have or go through that process. What were some of the things that you felt? I don't know if comfort is the right word, but where you felt that you got the most out of to make sure that you were setting yourself up to care for your daughter?
By the way, you did not tell me that this podcast was going to be so heavy. You should have warned me. You should have warned me. Honestly, educating myself. That was, I want to say, was the biggest comfort to this day. Obviously, I had the support, family support, but at the time, well, you remember, you were working. I stopped working to stay there in the hospital. They had the rooms upstairs. So I pretty much moved into the hospital. I would have to switch rooms every night, but I just carried everything in a bag and, go from there. So I just remember thinking, well, I have to find out everything that they're saying. I attended the first, what you would call rounds at the time, well, still to this day, where the doctors get together, discuss what's going on and what are the chances, what's the plan. And I remember sitting there and thinking, I don't understand any of this. So what do I do? How do I educate myself? So, they had computers upstairs at that time. We didn't have smartphones. Oh my God, I feel so old saying that. But there was no smartphone, so it's not like you just got on your phone and look it up. There was a wait period to get on the computers upstairs. There was like 2. So all the NICU parents, would try to use them. I would sign up at every availability that I had to look at support groups with the other parents that had preemies, any diagnosis or anything that they would mention about her. I was studying it for hours. So I would sit in her room, for most of the day, but any breaks that I got, it was studying.
Mm-hmm. And there's something you mentioned right there. You said you educated yourself. You would hear a word or a phrase that the doctors would use, and you would run upstairs and research that word. At this time, you're a nurse practitioner now. At this time, at 18 years old, your life is flipped upside down. Did you, by any chance, believe or think that you were going to become a nurse any day?
No. I thought that was a normal thing. I thought that when, your child gets sick, that's what you do. Mm-hmm. So no, had no idea. No one, no one in your family, my family is really in the healthcare field. So no, that wasn't.
And I think that's an important part from to bring up is that not only is no one was in the healthcare field from our side, but nobody had ever gone to college from your side, right?
Not graduated, no. Yeah.
So it wasn't the idea of that next phase of your life wasn't even a thought at that point. At that point, 100% was on your daughter, really researching and understanding every condition that she had, which was a lot. I think I mean you can go into more of the medical side of the surgeries that she had and how old or young was she?
I mean, weeks to months. At the trach, the tube in the throat, the G tube to eat. That was all young, all before she was 1. Yeah.
And so from that, a lot of those things were just, again, you educating yourself, taking initiative to understand what was really being put out from the doctors, nurses. Okay, so the next part of this is you have your daughter, you're researching, you're doing all these type of things to really understand what she's going through and how you're going to help her. Obviously, the main goal was to get her home. Throughout the process, was there people that you met that allowed or helped you understand everything that was going on with Deja?
Well, at the time, I'm sure you remember that, the social workers, they do what they're supposed to do. They, assess the situation and see, okay, is this fit? Your daughter's coming home with a lot of things that, some people just, or even myself, may not be able to handle, or both of us were both teenagers, but I remember they would ask quite a few times if we wanted to, award our daughter to the state. And then she would be in a group home, essentially a group home for disabled kids. And I remember the first time they brought it up, I was just so shocked and upset that they would even bring this to my attention. Now looking back as an adult, they had to do that, with all the circumstances that we were in. We were, getting gas cards. We were relying on gas cards from the hospital that they would give us weekly. Like, here's $50 gift card so you can come to and from the hospital. I stayed there, so, you used them because you were working with my dad. But, after the second, third time that was never an option. It was never an option for us. But the second, third time, the social worker had brought it up, I had to say, this is not an option. Please stop bringing it up. We're going to do, everything possible to make sure our daughter is well taken care of. And we had the support system. So it was her nurse. And to this day, I'm like eternally grateful. Her name, Susan. I've tried to find her. I don't know if she's still there at Children's Hospital of Seattle, but she, one of the people that I can honestly say, saved my life, saved, our daughter's life and, a future. Because she was the one that had, every day she was with her. I don't know, it seemed like she worked every single day. I'm sure she had a day off, but, every day it was a one-on-one that our daughter was her, patient, and she would talk to me every single day. And, I'd come back with research, come back with answers, and then she would say, after your daughter is more stable, you should really look into going into nursing school. You're meant to be a nurse.
Yeah.
And I just, I don't know if I believed her, but I heard her, obviously. I heard her loud and clear.
No, and I think that's important to bring up, because there's times where people either say it directly or indirectly, try to help us, and not just us, just people in general, give them guidance. And sometimes we have our blinders on or our earmuffs on, and we don't hear anything that people say. But it's really important that we, again, have that self-awareness to know what's going on around us, and what people are really trying to put out that helping hand, and get to that next step. Okay, so we're gonna fast forward into getting Deja home. She was in the hospital for 16 months, 18 months,
A year, over a year.
Yeah, it was about a year and a half.
No, she came home right before Christmas.
Yeah.
So she went in September.
So
about a year.
About 15 months, 15, 16 months. At that point, she's coming home. Is there still any idea that you're gonna go down the nursing route?
Yeah. At that point, when she went to the rehab center, and we're doing, I had that big packet to get signed off on before she could even go home. I had already enrolled in college and the community college, and I knew what, in my head, what courses I wanted to take. But I gave myself when she gets home, then that's when I start. So that's what I did.
Gotcha. And so at that time you're 19, 20? 19. So essentially that whole year after high school was spent with Deja, everything she had going on.
That was my foundation for nursing.
Yeah.
Without knowing at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so you decided you're going to take classes. Did you have any help or mentorship with, again, what classes to take, what really to make sure, because at that point we're back in California. We had moved back. So Deja was born in 2005, so we had moved back in 2006. Did you have any people that you were reaching out to in the nursing field, like to really try to understand what?
No, I didn't have any friends that were nurses. So
what were some of the things that you were doing to figure things out?
Anybody that I knew that was in college at the time. So they would say, talk to your counselor, make an appointment with your counselor. There's money for, financial aid. There's money for books. Make sure you sign up for those things. So all those things were super helpful. So I did those things. But then from there, I just made it a point to speak to counselors, let them know exactly, what it is I wanted to do, and then go from there.
So it was really you again trying to figure things out, not being afraid to ask questions. Anybody that would listen to talk to them.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think it's really important that people understand that the success is not going to come to you sometimes. Sometimes you have a situation like a Susan that they get dropped into your life, but at more times than none,
You're reaching out to people.
you're going to be reaching
answers.
out. You're really going to put the time and effort to get where you want to get to.
Yeah, and you'd get little, answers here and there from different people. Then you put the pieces of the puzzle together, what fits your life, and you go from there. But, I would reach out to anybody that said they wanted to be a nurse. And what are you doing? How are you doing it? Is that working? But yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to get comfortable with that, and sometimes it is uncomfortable to ask those kind of questions to people, especially people that maybe sometimes that you don't know.
Yeah.
But you never know who you're asking. That next person that you ask might give you not the red carpet, but roll out things that this is the way I did it. This is how I did it. And okay. So you got into nursing school. You are going through that process. During this time, are you, obviously Deja still has a lot of disabilities, a lot of things that are hindering her from doing things that are normal, or what would be considered a normal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old would do. Do you think at that time that you understood, again, going back to really understanding, because I really think the understanding part is a big part in the self-awareness and in all of us. Did you understand what and how the next steps were going to be from her coming home, you getting into school, and then at the time you were still you started working again. So you were a waitress at that time.
A waitress.
Yeah. Did you understand, or was there anything that was pushing you all that, or you just understood that these are the things that needed to be done, and then you just went out and did them?
Well, I knew we needed to work. I knew we needed to do that, and that our daughter needed to be taken care of. So that's when we had the nursing in the home, and we went through several nurses because it was, where did I feel, wasn't the situation where we could just leave her,
Yeah.
with your mom or at a daycare. That just wasn't even a possibility at that time, right when she came out. So she needed nursing care in the home. And we went through several nurses, until where we both felt comfortable, like, okay, I can go to school, you were working, who is she safest with? So, no, we definitely were not prepared.
Yeah.
But we went, took it day to day.
Yeah. But I think, again, it's when we look back at it, and then, like they always say, it's easy connecting the dots, looking backwards. But when we looked back at it, you didn't make an excuse.
No.
You didn't say I couldn't go back to school because of this, which in a lot of people's eyes, you probably had the right excuse. Right. My daughter is at home with disabilities and needs health care at that time. You didn't make any excuses. On top of that, again, you understood there's not just from I'm going to school, I need to be there for my daughter, but there's also, obviously, for all of us, there's a financial side of things. And so, again, you didn't make an excuse. Yeah. You just worked.
Yeah, just worked.
And I think that it's really important. And again, you obviously you know me, but I'm a big pro female. I say, I'll be the first to say it, that you can do 1,000 things more better, or you can do 1,000 things better than I can, all at the same time. And I think in my opinion, there's a female trait, or traits that females have that just males don't have. Okay, but I think sometimes people get tied up into the the idea that things are just happening just to happen. And I'm a true believer that things happen for a reason. Sometimes we always don't know the reasons, and sometimes we never figure them out. Sometimes they're just unknown, but they happen. And at this point, you have a daughter that has now given you your direction in life. Again, going from a teenage statistic to now understanding and start realizing what's next for your life, how you're going to provide for your daughter. So you graduate nursing school. How old were you?
23.
23.
I went
So-
full time. Well, you remember full time, double time, winter session, summer session, the whole thing.
At times, what was the max you had? How many
Oh,
units in
gosh.
one semester?
Like 22 units.
22
I
units
was
while working
desperate.
full time, while still having a daughter at home with disabilities. That's really, really impressive.
Thank you.
And so you graduated this ultimate accomplishment, really, of getting through all that and still getting to a point where you now have a career.
Yes.
What, at that particular time, what are some of the things that you wish you would have known?
At that time.
So you're 23, you're fresh out, graduated. What are some of the things that you wish you would have known that would have helped you prepare you? Because I look at life as stages, and some stages last 6 months, some stages last 10 years.
That maybe, I don't know, maybe enjoying the process or I would say that, enjoying the process, because whatever situation you're in, you will get out of if you keep putting, one foot in front of the other. So I have a hard time doing that.
Enjoying the process. So when you're saying enjoying the process, you're talking about going to nursing school. You have you have your head down, going to school, working, doing all those type of things. What would you have done differently, like as far as enjoying that process? What?
I would say because I stress a lot. Well, I stress if I don't, if I sign up for something, I want to do it well. Everything that I do, I want to do it well. So when I didn't get the good grades, I had good grades. I think I had like a 3.8 GPA because I really, really put in the work. But if I didn't do so well on a test, or even if I was studying really, really hard, I would still be nervous for the test because I just wanted to succeed. So all that time stressing really was not worth it, because if I prepared myself, I was going to get the good grades that I got anyways.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty hard on myself, I would say, and something I still work on, as you know. So that's something that I have to constantly, with your help, and I have to tell myself that it's okay not to win all of them, or it's okay not to stress so much, because it's going to work out, because, we're working.
But I think, and then part of that comes from that is that you're going to work regardless. So you might as well, throughout that process, take some deep breaths and enjoy that, because it's going to happen one way or the other, whether you like it or not. Things are going to happen, and I think it's really, really important that that viewers and our audience really sees that, because at times we get into different things, and I say we, but I'm speaking in general, that we don't always have the answers. We don't always have the direction. Really, sometimes it's just ideas. And the thing that's going to help you accomplish these things are going to be the work that you put into it, and enjoying that work. So now,
Well, with that being said, again, both of you guys are the oldest in your families. Cynthia, our parents came from Mexico, and they came here and they started working. Jesse, you were raised with your mom, So like, how scary is that to be like the first of like trying to get all these things? You know, like from having a baby so early and then jumping into a career that's so hard, and then you being there and trying to back her at the same time. Like, how scary is that?
I don't know if it was scary. I think from my standpoint, it was a lot of work. Like, not only from again, figuring out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, but also making sure that I was there as support. Because as a mom, there's, again, going back to the mom and female things, there's some things obviously that I can't do. But it was really important for me to support you throughout this process, because there was times, again, where you felt guilty that Deja, the things that happened or how it happened with Deja was your fault. And I think I understood that. I understood that at times it was more than just being there for Deja, more than just figuring out what my career or what my life is going to be about, but also being there as a partner and supporting you throughout that process. So that's, for me, it was understanding the what needed to be done. So I don't know if it was scary, but it was just a lot of work, because it went from, like I said, me being a teen dad to now also me being almost a psychologist, of going through that process with you and understanding your emotions, where they came from, and how I can best help you get through that process. And that was really, the next part was really tough, or throughout that process, obviously it was tough, but it was tough when we got into the conversations of having another kid, because those emotions that you were able to put to the back because so many years had passed, were now going to be front lobed.
Yeah.
Because will it happen again?
Because just thinking about how you guys are talking about this again, I know the story. I've heard the story over and over, but then rethinking about the story with no actual information, no cell phone, no MTV teen moms, watching other people go through this, right? Mind you, they had healthy babies or babies that didn't have to go to the NICU.
Yeah.
You guys didn't have this information, so it's like that's why I say it's scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You guys are.
And again, she would probably tell you it was scary, but for me, it was never really scary for me.
Yeah.
It was just, but again, everybody deals with things differently. But I just knew that I had to be more than just a dad and a partner. Like, it was just so much more support that I know that I needed to do from my end. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We've always been more, still to this day, mentally more tough than me, by far. By far.
I don't know if I would say that, but no, but that's a great question. I mean, it's a really, really, because people go through different things. And again, this is your story. This is our story. But somebody else might have gone through something different that can relate to it and can understand, what you're really talking about. Yeah. And there's obviously plenty of people we met plenty of people in the NICU, and the NICU still exists. So there's definitely a lot of people out there that are looking for, not only hurting, but looking for that light. Because I know for us, it was really trying to talk to different people in that NICU. And I remember thinking, there was a time that I really thought really bad about some of the things that were going on. And I remember meeting she was a young mom too. And her son had, some of the things that he had were worse than Deja's. And I remember just at that point, I looked at everything differently. I looked at it as a blessing, because there is somebody else that's worse, that in a worse position than we were. As bad as Deja was, as far as some of the things that she had, there was still hope every day, So yeah, I mean, that's a really, really good question though. So when you graduate nursing, at that point, are you saying this is it? Like, I'm a nurse. This is this is my career.
No.
I mean, what's your thoughts going to that next stage of your life?
I mean, I knew I wasn't done there. I wasn't sure what was next. But I mean, I get bored easily, or I feel like if I'm not moving towards the next goal, I feel unproductive and I just can never stay still. So I knew something was going to happen and I needed to put it on, paper, but I wasn't sure exactly at that time what I wanted to do. But I think right after, like 2 months later, I had signed up to go back to school for my bachelor's. So, I got into something, of course, right after. Right after I said I was going to take a break.
So you sign up for your bachelor's. Let's go back to the beginning. Do you feel like some of those things continue to carry over? Some of the hard work, dedication, sacrifice.
Never let go of that.
But is it something that you always thought about, or it's just something that, again, what's next? What's next?
Yeah, just what's next.
Yeah.
I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, 23. Yeah, I don't think I knew that, but I knew something was next.
Yeah. And I think it's, at times we don't always know what's next, but it's things that that really, like I said, just carry over from different stages of our life. And I think it's really important to bring up that, and I said it earlier, that it wasn't a map.
No.
It was just not, there was not something that, hey, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. These are the classes you're going to take. You're going to go sign up at this. It really came down to what you wanted to do and you figuring it out, going out and really, again, you almost at that point just start at ground zero again. You're reaching out to whoever you can reach out to. You start asking the questions and try to get the answers that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's always so many situations that we put ourselves into that we don't always have the answers. And again, I'm saying us, but I'm speaking in general, general speaking. Okay, so you get into bachelor's, you get your bachelor's degree. At what point did you think, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do all these great things?
Oh my gosh, never. Never.
Jumping into that, first off, is me being witness to it, is how I've seen a lot of young people become parents. And as soon as they have kids, they kind of switch into this selfish mode where now it's their significant other and their baby. And it's not so much their family, like their brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles. How is it, and mind you, because again, I'm testament to that, and my brothers and sisters, how is it that you guys didn't do that? Being the oldest and then being in this position with Deja, that you guys didn't become selfish and were still involved heavily into your younger brothers and sisters' lives, and making sure they're still doing good, and you're still having a big part in raising them. How did you guys not become selfish?
I think, for me, it was never an option. Like I said, that protective nature, but also just bringing up that next generation. In my head, I said, okay, I want to be successful. I want to do all these things. I want to be a great example, and I want them to be better than me. How do I do that? How do we not lose sight of that? And it's kind of part of your morals. And luckily, he had the same. So we always understood each other on how heavily involved we were with our siblings. And that part's always come natural to me. And I love that part of my life.
Yeah, and I think it goes more into, like you said, we kind of always been on the same page when it comes to that. Because that's the hardest part, is when you get into something where your partner doesn't understand. To us, it was easy because we're both the oldest. we both had that father mother figure. Like it wasn't we were just another sibling to our siblings. It was on a different level. So we definitely related a lot more to that, to each other, like as far as each other. And I think even more so, we understood each other, that you were going to be that on your side, I was going to be that on our side. And then, obviously as we grew and got older, it was us becoming that to not just my side, now I'm to your side, and vice versa to you and to my side. So I think that the I guess the best answer from my end is just the communication and understanding that we had on each other, that it was easy to make sure that that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you become, or before, so this is your 23 nursing. Okay. At what point you were 26, Wikata?
27.
27. So you started with your bachelor's, started on your bachelor's. The conversation starts coming up, have another kid. What are you going through? Again, going back to your emotions and your thoughts. What are you going through during that time? Because at this point, you have your daughter, Deja. She's home. She's getting healthier by the year. She's not all the way there yet, but she's getting healthier by the year. What are some of the thoughts that you were going through at that time?
Just no. I'm not ready. Most situations I have, in my life or our life, I felt like I could control the narrative. If I do this, this will happen. If I work hard, you get this. But that was completely out of outer body experience. It's like you in no way can control. I had already experienced it. So I'm like, I can't control this. I can't make sure that I have a healthy baby. And so I didn't want to go through it. I didn't want to go through it again.
There's a lot of doubt.
I could. I just didn't think I could do it.
So there's a lot of doubt on yourself, because you felt, going back to bringing those emotions forward from the first time it happened, you felt it was your fault again. So they started to resurface and really take yourself through the thoughts of pain and everything that you went through with Deja, staying at the hospital, gas cards, going through a package to make sure that you need to finish this package or else your daughter can't come home. All those type of things were all coming forward again. And what made you finally decide yes?
I think like you asking a billion times. I don't think there was any other reason.
So
there definitely wasn't another reason.
So I guess there's that's part of that's going to be part of the podcast. It's persistence. You got to be persistent in things.
Clearly, because I would have never.
You got to be persistent to get things done. So the persistence of Dad.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you have Katalea. You're finishing up school with your bachelor's, or you're already done?
I was way done.
Oh.
That was the deal, remember? I finished school and you say, okay, kids. And I said, no, I got to go back for my bachelor's. And then you're like, okay, after that, then we'll have kids. And then I'm like, no, I just got a job. You have to be at a job for 2 years, prove yourself. You just can't get pregnant. So I just kept postponing and until you're like, no, now you've delayed a little too long. I'm like, oh gosh. So yeah. I was already 3-4 years out of school.
How did your pregnancy go with the second one?
Well, I was high risk, so I was going to we were going to the hospital. Oh my gosh, I don't know, every month, I would say, and then weekly, and then biweekly. I was getting shots weekly.
Yeah.
Going to the high risk doctor, and
so you said shots. So because I remember giving the shots. Those are shots that anybody gets as far as pregnancy, or what were those shots for?
Because I was high risk, so they were progesterone shots. Because they did not know why. We had Deja early. They just wanted to take as much precaution as they could, so they felt this would, keep the baby in longer, try to prevent preterm birth. So that's what the doctors felt was necessary.
So the doctor prescribed those to to try to create or help with the prolonging of the pregnancy. Okay. Right. And Catalea still came early. Mm-hmm. How early was she? So Deja was 23 weeks pregnant. You were 23 weeks pregnant when Deja was born. How old were you when Catalea was born? Or not how old are you? How many weeks was she at when?
35 weeks. 3 days before her baby shower.
35 weeks. So she was a little preemie, but not as much as Deja. Mm-hmm. She did stay in the ICU or the NICU. Yeah. The NIC
for a week.
Care for a week. Mm-hmm. A little bit different from your 16-month process than the last one. Mm-hmm. So you get into Catalea, then a year and a half later, you have your third one.
A few months, like not a year and a half later, 9 months later, something like that. I was pregnant again.
You were pregnant again, but you had him a year and a half later from Catalea. Mm-hmm. Around that time, you had all these great ambitions to be an entrepreneur.
Towards the end of the pregnancy.
Well, your answer was no, you didn't.
Yeah, no, well, because you forced me, but it came at that time, whatever.
But you didn't. But you didn't. It wasn't something that.
No.
So you're 26 at the time. You got into.
Wait, when I had him?
No, yeah, when you got into entrepreneurship.
No,
you became an entrepreneur.
28.
Okay, so 28. You were 28. You. I was
giving you the idea so that you could do them, and then you brought me along with your plan. I wasn't what I wanted to do. So
you were dragged into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
You were dragged into it. Got it. Okay, so you're 28. You have your first business. Mm-hmm. Talk about some of the things that prepared you for that moment.
Oh, gosh. all the things difficult in my life. So pretty much just that. In my eyes, I felt like I had gone through the most difficult things in life when your daughter is near death every single day for a year. So I didn't think anything would be worse than that. Pretty much, that's what got me through. Mm-hmm. So just figuring it out. Working through all the difficulties of starting a business.
So you go from working as a nurse
to still working as a nurse.
You get into owning your own business, mm-hmm. and then you're still working as a nurse. Mm-hmm. You have three kids at this point, which we have 3. Jalen's our last one right now. Oof. For now. At that time, what are some of your, I guess, next ambitions after getting into your own business?
After the first year, and still trying to work full time as an employee, then having the business, I thought, okay, how do I just do the business full time? Because it was hard to split both, be full-time employee and also a 24/7 entrepreneur. So I'm like, I like this side a little bit better. So even with all its hardships, you're still working for your own thing. So at that point, I'm like, okay, what do we need to do to put me in this full-time? Mm-hmm. So I think I didn't know how we were going to get there, but that was what my goal was.
And your first business was assisted living homes, mm-hmm. for the elderly. Mm-hmm. So you go from 1 to 2 to 3. Throughout that process, did you envision that all happening, or it was something that you felt like just kind of happened?
No, at that point when I said we need to do this full time, I knew we needed quite a few to make that happen. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I knew 4 or more than 2, but I knew at least 2. I think the goal at the time was 3, because mm-hmm. we said, if we have 3, then I'd be able to stop working. Mm-hmm. So, and we have 4, and I'm still working.
But why risk it at that time? You just did all that schooling. You just came up from all this difficult stuff with the kids. You just had your 3rd kid. why risk it? It's a good job. Being a nurse is a good job. You're making some good money. Why risk it and start something so like scary?
Well, I guess you can't say I ever fully risked it because I never quit. Because in the back of my head, I was thinking, I need to have this consistent income in case. I was always the in case. He was full blown entrepreneur, but I'm like, somebody needs to have, bring in that consistent income because we already had 3 kids. I couldn't bring myself to take that full, I felt like I was risking their lives as well. So I just couldn't do it. So I would work around the clock. I did it during breaks. As soon as I got off work, I worked from, I don't know, whatever time that was, 4 or 5 o'clock until they went to sleep. And then when they went to sleep, I still stayed up because it was, just what I had to do. But I couldn't quit because we didn't have consistent income. We were working towards it, but we kept reinvesting or taking another risk, buying another home.
So you have 3 homes at this time. And I'm going to try to speed it up because I know we're on a time. I don't want to take our viewers too much of our viewers' time.
I'm gonna get hangry.
So at that time, you have 3 businesses, you have a career, and you decide to go back to school.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Where does that come from? Why continue going? Like.
Oh my gosh, if you would have asked me the first semester, I think, when I was taking tests, I would sit there before my first test. I'm like 5 hours into studying. I'm like, why did I do this? Like, I already have a great job. I already have these businesses that are, looking positive. Why am I doing this to myself? And I honestly don't think I gave myself the answer. I was just like, Cynthia, do what you got to do. Take this test and talk to yourself later. Because I talk to myself a lot. So I'm like, just get this done. And then try to find the answer. And to this day, I honestly can't say I have the answer. I'm just always trying to reach for more. I'm not sure why. I guess I have this an adrenaline,
And I think
addiction.
part of it
Maybe,
comes from the no luck all work. I mean, it really, that's part of who you are. And you've been successful at so many different things that the work that's going to be cut out for that next thing doesn't seem like work. Seem like work. It looks like something that you already know, that you've seen before. Might be a different field. You go from nursing to owning homes to, again, being at home with the kids. It's just something that looks very, very familiar.
Right.
So you go to school
For 3 years. Yeah.
What and I want you, because I think it's important to say that. But what was it? What did you do? Who did you apply to? And what were your thoughts, or what did you tell me when you applied? If you remember.
Yeah, I applied to only one school, to USC. It's always, I went to Mount St. Mary's, which was down the street when I was an undergrad. And in my head, I didn't think I could get into there when I was that age. So it was kind of like a distant dream, I guess you can say. So I said, this is where I'm going to apply. This is it. And I want it to be a rigorous program because I'm going to be prescribing. I'm going to be taking care of people. I have people's lives in my hands. This needs to be hard. If it's easy, then there's a problem with that. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I wanted to go through a rigorous program that was going to put me through the ringer.
And it did.
And it did. It sure did. It sure did.
You got exactly what you wanted out of that.
You are correct.
So at this point, again, you have 3 elderly homes.
Yes.
You are working as a nurse full time.
Yes.
You have 3 kids at home.
Yes.
How do you think you've been able to manage being a partner? That's number 1. Being a mother, being a great nurse, and still owning your own businesses, multiple.
It's definitely, like I say, mental, but I would say there's I think a lot, so it's definitely planned. It's definitely somehow construed in my head to make it all work, to time these things out, still enjoy life, but also, every day for the most part, my hours are accounted for. For me, it has to. I know you're a little bit more free spirited and run 3-4 hours late to things, forget things, but no, I have to account for every hour. I'm like, okay, what am I doing tomorrow from this time to this time? Okay, 6 to 8 p.m. or 7 to 9 p.m. That's all the kids. I don't know. And then in the morning, all the kids.
How does somebody else, like, what does that look like for somebody else? How do they do that?
You put your goals down. What do you want to accomplish? And how does this look? How are you going to make it happen? You need to plan the actions. So to me, it kind of is reverse. These are the actions that I need to take in order to make this happen. I want to still be very, once I knew I was going to be working full time as kids, I said, okay, but I don't want to let go of taking the kids to school. How do I make it work? So, okay, that means I wake up a little bit earlier to make sure I drop off my kids to school. How do I make sure that I bathe my kids every night before they go to sleep? How does that look? I'm tired, but I'll get the rest afterwards, I guess. So I think first what results I want and then plan the actions accordingly.
So because I want to get to, so that people can see this and look at it and say, okay, I can take something from this to extract something from this video and actually implement.
Well, I'm a paper planner, so I have 3 planners.
It has to do with a planner or a calendar, something being put on paper, because we all have thoughts in our head, and we get a phone call, we get an email that throws off those thoughts. So having that on paper, on a calendar, on a planner, can help with kind of dissecting your time frames, where you're going to be at, who you're going to be with, and make sure that things are not overlooked.
Right. Yeah.
Pretty good. So you've been really successful at what you've been doing. And I have appreciated the partner along this road of understanding the work that goes into things, that people don't get lucky. Yeah. That there's going to be a common theme with all of our videos, and our videos are going to go from a nurse or a high school statistic pregnant little girl that is now a nurse practitioner, entrepreneur, all these type of things, to somebody that's completely different in the working field, let's say a firefighter, all these things, and they're all going to come in and have the same core
theme.
And it's really that they got to where they got to, not because of luck, but the work that they put into it. They were successful because of the hard work that went into every stage of their life. Because, like I said, I'm a big believer in things happen in stages.
Yeah, well, like I've always told Isaac, or most of them, but mainly Isaac, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. There's no other way around it.
Bars.
So I'm going to end the podcast at this point, and I think we can sit here and talk all day long on just different avenues of what's going on, how you got there. And I'm going to end this podcast with the same thing, or the same questions that I'm going to end all of our podcasts with. Okay. So it's a 2-part question. Okay. You're Cynthia Tadeo, 34 years old.
Just turned 34.
What do you say to the 18-year-old Cynthia, September 9th, 2005 at 1:05, or 101, let's just say 1:10, because she was born at 1:05. And the next part is, we're going to look 35 years from now. And what do you want the 75-year-old Cynthia to say she's most proud of?
Okay. First one. What do I tell myself? First question. What do I tell my 18-year-old self? I'm gonna make it. However that looks, I'm going to be successful. Keep your head up. Be proud of what you've done thus far and what you're going to continue to do. Enjoying the process.
Your 70-year-old self now. What is she going to be most proud of?
It's 70 years young, and would be most proud of making a difference. I know that sounds cliche, but really making an impact in whatever it is that I'm doing. Whether that's working with elderly, I can see myself working with elderly my entire life, and really just helping the next person that was once where I was. So being proud of myself, making an impact, and bringing people along with me. That's what I would be most proud of myself, I feel.
That's great. Well, thank you for being the inspiration for not just us or me, but everybody around us. Thank you for working so hard in everything that you do. And I love you. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you.
Wow. Look at Isaac's face.
Thanks for being my first guest on the podcast. And I hope there's somebody that's out there that can find inspiration in this. And
that's when you know when I still love you, even the times I don't like you.
Yeah.
That's when you know it's true love.
And they continue on their road to success, but understand that it's going to take hard work. And as long as they're willing to do it, they'll be successful.
Thank you for having me as your first guest. Now, can I have water, or is the budget rough?
Our budget's a little rough, but we got. I know you asked for some sparkling water.
I did not ask for sparkling.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
So we had two. We have the normal kind or the lime.
There was a 2-for-1 special that I'm sure.
That doesn't matter. You got your sparkling water that you asked for.
I did not ask for that.
On our podcast.
Thank you. But if I would have asked for something, it would have been food.
Thank you for viewing our podcast. And if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like it, and share it to anybody that needs to understand that things don't happen because people are lucky. They happen because they put in the hard work. So continue to work hard, and we'll see you on the next one. Good job. First part was a little rough, but we got through it.
What rough first part?
Because of who?
Because Claire.
Oh, Claire, you hang out with me every day. You don't hang out with her.
Jesse, like, you're my boss, but like Cynthia's also like my boss. And she's also your boss.
Yeah, that's true. I'm your
So
boss.
like,
No, not
my
your
boss's boss.
I should have went a little bit more into the nurse practitioner.
Alright.
But you could save that for like another one.
Yeah.
We have Cynthia back, and now we're gonna focus on like just her last couple years of her
Career.
How long was that? Like
An hour and 20 minutes, huh?
Like, it's an hour and 25 minutes right now, but like footage is probably gonna be like an hour. It's probably gonna be like an hour and 10.
The sushi place is not anywhere near here. And it was like, okay, minimum order is $80. I was like, okay, maybe, but
Yeah.
it said delivering in 3 days. Oh,
3
no.
days?
Yeah.
I'm looking right now.
So far.
What are you gonna get? Do you know yet?
No. 'Cause it's, chicken soup.
Yeah, I want to kind of
Chicken
send this all over right now because I don't want to lose any of the files.
Where are you